Why we hate the English. Let me start by saying we don't actually hate the English as individuals, excluding people like Nigel Stammer Smith, John Inverdale, Jeremy Guscott, Maggie Thatcher and Jimmy Hill, because we do hate them. What we hate is perceived Englishness, the idea as seen on TV and perpetrated by people in the media. What I mean by Englishness is an erring belief that they are superior to everyone in the world and that everyone should show them the respect they deserve. Englishness is flag-waving skinhead football thugs singing how England won the world wars fought by the English Army, Navy and Air Force. Of course, I think if you actually looked at that you'd find it was the British forces that fought in these wars, and predominantly were made up, percentage-wise, more Scots than English. There was, in every war there's been more Scots killed than English per head of population, percentage-wise. Englishness is when England football fans riot in other countries, and then it's reported on the UK news as British fans. Because when, let's say, a Scottish and Irish, Welsh athlete gains some sort of accolade, it's reported in Britain as a British athlete. But if they happen to be English, then it's an English athlete. This is seen in how kids are interested in sport. Just about every Scottish kid and every Irish, Welsh kid will have a favourite English football team, and in fact they'll know a lot about the English leagues. I don't think you'll get many English kids that know much about what's happening in Scotland, England, Scotland, Ireland and Wales. It just doesn't get covered by the British media. And politically, Scotland's different to England, and that was very, very true under the Thatcher government, when Scotland was completely socialist, completely voting red. You looked at the political map, Scotland was red, England was blue. So much so, and what mattered so little to Maggie, that she was prepared to test out on new legislation like the poll tax, which was tested in Scotland over a year before it came into England. Didn't hardly make the news, the national news, even though there was civil disturbances happening throughout Scotland on a regular basis. It didn't make the news. But as soon as the poll tax went into the rest of the UK, England, we had riots on the news day in, day out. The English weren't worried about it being tested on the hick provinces. So this is the issue that Scots have with English. It's this just attitude of not caring a damn about anyone else. The Scots are sick of playing this supporting role, which has been going on for centuries, and not getting any recognition for what we've achieved for the empire. Scots have been the backbone of industry, science, politics, philosophy, everything you can think of. Scots have played a very important role in that. In fact, the Scots have been the shock troops of the British Army, and this because of this doing stuff and nobody noticing, that's why we've developed a chip on our shoulder, because we're sort of, hey, wait a minute, we were there, we did that, what about us? We've got that sort of attitude all the time because we're constantly seemingly ignored. I know many English people, and they're just like us, they're exactly the same, but they live in a culture where it's easy to believe that the world was discovered, invented and sold from somewhere in Kent. It's just not the case, quite obviously. A lot of Scots see England as a little America. It's kind of full of its own importance, it's really insular, tied up in its own affairs and not really interested in anybody else. It's forgotten its roots. And this is something that doesn't happen in Celtic nations. In Scotland, if someone's getting a lot of praise, power, wealth, people will say, Kent is feather, pointing out that we're all Jock Thompson's bairns, we're all the same, and as the poet said, a man's a man for all that. It seems that English have forgotten that they are the same as everybody else, and when English get themselves in a challenging situation, Englishmen think to themselves, well, we'll win. They build themselves up into a frenzy, leading to inevitable disappointment. Case in point, England-Ireland match at the weekend there. Very sad cases, tragic. I think this might be a sort of historical throwback, this sort of xenophobia that happens in America, is a Freudian slip there. In England, I think it's something to do with the 100-year war when England was fighting just about everybody in Europe. Meanwhile, the Scots are in the background trading with everybody in Europe and sending its fighting men out to be professional soldiers, lead campaigns often against the English throughout Europe. This is best portrayed in Old Alliance with France, where Scottish soldiers were the pride of the French army. In fact, made up the king's own personal bodyguard for many centuries. Scotland's always been a welcoming nation because we've been to so many parts of the world ourselves. We're quite prepared to accept people in. The issue, I think, can be demonstrated by the feud that's still ongoing between Campbells and McGregors in many parts of Scotland, where Campbells won't get served in pubs. You can bring your dog in, but not a Campbell. This is because the Campbells supposedly reneged on Highland hospitality and they turned on their hosts, which is just unacceptable. If you ask for hospitality, you're expected to receive it, and once you've received it, that's it. You pay it back, because Scots know that someday you're going to be in the shit yourself, and you're going to need somebody to bail you out of it. I think that's the problem with a lot of Englishness that we see, is we get the impression that if we were to go and knock on an English door and look for shelter, you'd be told to get on your bike. It seems like what Maggie said has happened, that there's no such thing as society, or there's a community kind of a member, only the individual. And that's what it feels like, that people just don't care about each other anymore. That is seeping into Scotland. It's a worrying trait, but I still think Scottish people are different enough not to let it happen. What else have we got to say about it? So I guess a good example of how Scots have been accepted to other parts of the world is how many places around the world in different cultures you can hear bagpipes and people wearing tartan. There's not that many places in the world apart from England that you go to that you can find Morris dancers. So I think that English culture is kind of not as accepted by other nations as maybe Scottish culture is. I think it's probably that tribal element to it. So that's really about it. I can't think what else to say about Englishness. Plus, the point is sports. When you see England fans now at last starting to fly the flag of St George, whereas up until very recently, within 5 years, they flew the Union Jack. I think they thought that was their flag. I was at a Reading Rock Festival many years ago, and I had that very flag there, and it got nicked by a bunch of English guys, and I chased after them, and it was a bit surreal moment when I caught up with them, and they were saying that they'd discovered the Welsh flag because it had a dragon on it. I think that kind of sums up how ignorant a lot of English people are about other societies and cultures out there. So there ends my answer, but it ends in English, remembering to say it's not English people hate, it's Englishness.